to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chair Paul, Vice Chair Lewis,
Here.
Board Member Whitman,
Here.
Board Member Hatton,
Here.
Board Member Starkey,
Here.
Mr. LeBac,
Here.
Mr. Holste, Mr. Weinthal. Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any items that need to be tabled or withdrawn or added? If not, I'm going to go ahead and pull number 2 because CRA Director Philip Holste, where did Philip go? There he is. Okay. He's going to give us a presentation. I looked for you right there and you were gone. Okay, Philip, you.
Good evening, Vice Chair, board members, and the public. Philip Holste, Assistant Town Administrator and CRA Director. Over the past couple years, the Davie CRA and Town of Davie have been working on extending the CRA term through 2039, the statutorily permitted time for the CRA. The proposed extension now you'll be considering tonight required extensive dialogue with Broward County, which has resulted in a proposed interlocal agreement between the Davie CRA, Town of Davie, and Broward County that you'll be considering at tonight's CRA meeting as well as the Town Council meeting. This agreement accomplishes 2 significant goals. It allows the Davie CRA to continue another 12 years through 2039 and enables the Davie CRA in town to address a town and county-wide need, affordable housing, which I'll be covering during my presentation. Before I continue, I want to thank the Davie CRA Board and the Davie Town Council for providing their guidance and support throughout this process. I also want to recognize the town's team that brought this ILA to fruition. That includes Mr. Lemack, Mr. Weinthal, Mr. Sherwin, Ms. Ellett, and Ms. Thomas. And finally, we want to acknowledge Broward County, including Senator Geller, County Administrator Monica Saparo, Housing Finance Director Ralph Stone, County Attorney Andrew Myers, and Assistant County Attorney Renee Harad, because without them, we couldn't have reached this point. So at this time, I'm going to cover the interlocal terms between the Davie CRA, the town, and Broward County. As mentioned already, this ILA will extend the CRA term through September 2039. Currently, we have about a little less than 3 years remaining in the CRA, so this will give us another 12 years. As part of this ILA, we would no longer receive funding from the other entities that we currently receive funding now, such as Broward County, the Hospital Districts, Children's Services Council, and Central Broward Water Control District. So as of fiscal year 2027, that would be the final year we would receive funding from them. So starting in fiscal year 2028, we'd receive funding from the town of Davie only. The other thing that's part of this agreement is a county contribution. So recognizing that the town may have had the ability to extend the CRA unilaterally, we worked out an agreement with Broward County that they're going to be contributing dollars on an annual basis starting in fiscal year 2028 through 2035. That'll go towards affordable housing initiatives town-wide, which I'll cover what those initiatives are in a little bit. And as I already mentioned, those initiatives can be spent town-wide, not just in the CRA. So before we discuss the permitted affordable housing programs, I want to share a passage from the county's 10-year affordable housing master plan, and I'm quoting directly. The needs assessment found Broward County's economic competitiveness, resiliency, and quality of life are at risk. Unless affirmative affordable housing measures are enacted, there will be severe effects in the county's leading employment sectors, such as leisure and hospitality, healthcare, and retail, relying on service sector workers along with major institutions such as hospitals, public schools, colleges, and universities. The needs assessment measured the level of affordable housing demand and distress in the county and found that the housing crisis became more pervasive following the COVID crisis. The assessment found that the town of Davie has an affordable homeowner supply gap of 4,644 units and an affordable rental supply gap of 3,696 units. So now I'm going to cover the housing programs that are included in this interlocal agreement. But remember, this isn't comprehensive. What I mean is these programs are included in the interlocal. If in the future we come up with new programs, we can incorporate it in interlocal through agreement with Broward County. So first, we'll have the rehabilitation of residential properties subject to restricted covenants, requiring that the affordability of these residential units be maintained for a period of at least 10 years for owner-occupied housing. Next, we would have first-time homebuyer assistance programs subject to restricted covenants requiring that the affordability of the residential units be maintained for at least 15 years. We could utilize this funding to actually fund the infrastructure such as drainage, water, wastewater, etc., for new affordable housing projects. We can also provide gap financing if there's a project that for whatever reason doesn't meet its return on our investment. We can utilize funding from the town in order to cover that gap, in order to get that affordable housing project constructed. As part of this, the residential units would be required to have an affordability period of at least 30 years. And then finally, a little bit of a catch-all, we can introduce other programs or incentives into this, utilizing the county contributions based upon the approval of the county. So other terms in the interlocal agreement. So the interlocal agreement county contribution will be distributed on an annual basis. It will be budgeted on an annual basis. Since this was an agreement that was negotiated between both parties, the county cannot allocate the funding for the future years. They got to do it on a year-by-year basis because of Florida Statutes 129. We've gotten that commitment from the county administration's office that they'll be making that annual contribution, and we believe this funding will be there because the funding is actually coming from the expiring CRAs countywide. The county's putting that money into affordable housing. We know a lot of the CRAs are expiring, so we believe there will be sufficient money to make this contribution on an annual basis. If the county, for whatever reason, has a year they can't make the contribution, it'll be due on or before December 1st of the subsequent fiscal year. So from a reporting standpoint, with the extension of the CRA, we're going to still have the same statutory requirements that we have to provide every year in terms of an annual report, audit, etc. All that remains in place with this extension. We'll have one additional report that we'll have to do as the Broward County to demonstrate how we're spending the county funding, that $18+ million, how we're spending it on affordable housing on an annual basis. That report would be coming from the town of Davie, not the Davie CRA, because again, the affordable housing money is going directly to the town to spend townwide. So the next steps, the first one's tonight, obviously. The CRA board and the town council has to approve the proposed interlocal agreement. If that occurs, we believe it'll be placed on a county commission agenda in February of 2025. So this doesn't end things. I'm going to go over the next steps once this interlocal agreement's approved. So the town would have about 180 days to amend its redevelopment plan. It was last amended back in 2012. And basically, we would have to amend the interlocal agreement to amend the redevelopment plan to demonstrate that we're extending our time frame to 2039 and also incorporating any new initiatives or programs that we want to accomplish between now and 2039. So the first step is the CRA board would need to approve proposed modifications to the redevelopment plan and submit them to the local planning agency, which is also known here as our Planning and Zoning Board. Following that, the local planning agency would review the plan, ensure that it complies with the comprehensive plan, and make a recommendation of approval or denial of the modification to the redevelopment plan. At that time, it would come back to the CRA board for final approval and adoption of that redevelopment plan and submittal to the Davie Town Council. We have specific requirements we would have to follow in terms of public notice, public hearings, and so forth. Since we still have the 5 other taxing entities, we would have to notify them about the modification to the redevelopment plan because they are continuing to contribute through fiscal year 2027 to the CRA. And then finally, the town council ultimately would have to make 2 resolutions adopting the modified redevelopment plan, but also adopting a resolution stating that we're extending the CRA through September 30th of 2020 or 2039. And I appreciate your time tonight, and I'll take any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome.
I was on Orange Drive.
Yeah. Some of the things they indicated in the backup that you can use the money for would be roadway improvements and canals and other things. Is that still, and paving, lighting, solid waste, are those expenses is what we're considering in the ILA? Is that what they're, I mean, that's what I read in here, but I didn't see it in your presentation.
So it was covered under the third item for eligible expenses. It's actual expenses related to planning, designing, or implementing horizontal infrastructure such as drainage, water, wastewater. I'm going to list them all: solid waste, lighting, paving, bridges, roadways, canals, or transportation in conjunction with affordable housing projects. Now, there's a cap on how much it can be spent. I believe it's like 15%. So you can't spend all $18 million on that type of infrastructure project.
Okay.
But you can allocate some of that funding towards it.
Okay, because I wanted to make sure that with the legislation that had passed along, I guess there were some issues, or maybe it was the county's push to not do some of those infrastructure projects, but more money going to affordable housing. So they're still allowing for this?
That's one of the eligible expenses in the criteria that the town, the CRA, and the county have agreed on. So the interlocal agreement
Good.
you see tonight, both parties have agreed to it. Obviously, it has to go to elected bodies for approval, but at a staff level, it's been agreed to.
Okay, good. No, that's good to know that it's still allowed, because I heard scuttle. The other thing is with the project that we recently spoke about today, that might be coming before us in the future, would there be enough dollars collected that could be used for the payback of any kind of loan that we may need to take out from the CRA's perspective, paying it back?
I believe any dollars would have to be expended after the date of the county contribution beginning. But that's something we can get clarified. I don't believe there's no reimbursement of expenses that would occur now to the future. So if you're anticipating that if we spend dollars now on, say, an affordable housing project, we could reimburse ourselves with the county contributions in fiscal year 2028, nothing like that was ever contemplated. So I believe the answer is no. I mean, if Alan has an additional feedback on that, but that was never anticipated. The anticipation is anything that would be expended in that starting in fiscal year 2028, and that actual expenditure would have to occur in that year, because we have to start reporting in December of 2028, and there's no expectation that we're going to be reimbursing ourselves for expenses that we've incurred today.
Okay, so I'm just concerned with the budget on the issues that we were speaking of today, because still considering those, right?
Well,
We'll have to look into whether it,
If I could interject, I'm not sure what you spoke about earlier, but it's not on the agenda.
it's not on the agenda, but I'm worried about if this project, if this ILA is approved, will we have the money and availability? I know it's a later discussion, but would we, you guys know the funding.
I think it'd be, behoove everyone here. I understand, you're worried about the future, but we should deal with that the time comes and it's advertised for discussion. Right now, we're just talking about the CRA extension, the ILA, and what's in front of us. I think we should just focus on that.
So the second part to that question is, would that require us to go back to the county with this? Or is this going to be sufficient, this ILA?
This ILA is sufficient. Anything that occurs in the future, that'll be the board will have to deliberate at that time based on the circumstances. But I would not anticipate that we can utilize this money for any projects that we're spending money on today. Okay. So we would have to be spending that money once this agreement takes an effect in terms of the county contribution.
All right,
I think
thank
we've
you.
been working with our administrator and assistant administrator long enough to know that they're watching out for us, and everything will fall into place. Any other discussion? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we have no old business, no new business. Okay. Bless you. Are we blessing? Any,
Bless again.
any comments or from anybody? Mr. Holmes, do you have anything else you want to say? Okay. Mr. Weinthal? Thank you. No report items? Okay, if there are no objections. We're adjourned.